The first time she entered the palace, she thought she had stepped into another world. The walls were lined with golden carvings, the air filled with the scent of incense and power. Chinyere, a young woman from a small village, could not believe that her life had led her here. All she knew was the weight of poverty, the ache of losing her husband to sickness, and the desperate need to protect her only son, Nana. The palace seemed like a promise of safety. A prince had chosen her, had told her she would never know hunger again. She clutched Nana's hand tightly as she walked behind him, wondering if the whispers of fortune were truly for her. That night, when the prince smiled and told her, "This place will be your home," her heart fluttered with a hope she did not recognize as fear disguised as love. But in the days that followed, her duties in the palace were not what she had imagined. She was not treated as a wife but as a servant. Every evening, she was called into the great hall where the chiefs and elders sat. They would remove their sandals, and she, the woman they called queen, would kneel and wash their feet. At first, she told herself it was a test of humility, a small price to pay for her son's safety and her own place in the palace. "A good woman serves with her hands," the prince told her, brushing her cheek with fingers that carried both warmth and command. And so, she served. Day after day. Month after month. The basin of water became her closest companion. She whispered prayers into it, hoping her son would grow strong within the palace walls. But she noticed things that troubled her. Whenever she asked after Nana, the prince would change the subject. The boy was no longer allowed near her during her duties. "He is being taught to be a man," they told her, "he does not need his mother's shadow." Yet, something in her spirit quaked. She saw fewer smiles on his face. Fewer words from his lips. And one night, when she called out for him in her sleep, she felt the emptiness of her room echo back. The palace was beautiful, yes, but beauty can be the sharpest trap. 7 years passed like a shadow. 7 years of kneeling, bowing, and washing feet that carried dust from lands she had never seen. 7 years of silence about her son. Her hands became rough, her knees scarred from the hard floors of the palace. But she endured. She endured because she believed that love meant sacrifice, and that one day her son would come to her with the strength of a prince. Yet her heart carried questions she dared not ask aloud. One evening, as the rain fell heavy on the palace roofs, she dared to whisper to one of the older maids, "Have you seen my son? Has Nana grown tall?" The maid froze, her eyes darting around before she pulled Chinyere into a corner. Her voice trembled. "My sister, do not ask. Some truths in this palace are poison." Then she walked away, leaving Chinyere trembling in the dark. The next day, she gathered courage and asked the prince directly. His face grew hard, the softness gone from his eyes. "You question me after all these years? Do you not trust me?" He struck the table with his palm, the sound echoing through the hall. "Do not forget who you are, Chinyere. You are here because I brought you. Do not anger the gods." She bowed her head, tears burning her eyes, yet her spirit whispered, "Something is wrong." But still, she washed their feet. Still, she sang songs under her breath, songs her mother had taught her in the village. Songs of strength hidden in obedience. She was trapped in the palace, yes, but her soul clung to something the walls could not crush, hope. She did not know that the truth was buried beneath the very stones she scrubbed clean every day. It was during a festival that the first crack in the lie appeared. The palace was filled with drumming, laughter, and masks painted with fierce colors. She moved among the guests, carrying water and wiping sweat, her body moving like a shadow among the living. Then she heard it. A story being told by a drunken elder. His words slurred, but his meaning was sharp enough to pierce her heart. "Ah, remember the boy we buried when the prince took his bride? A stubborn child who would not bow. They said he was cursed, huh? Even his mother never knew." Chinyere dropped the calabash she carried. The sound of it shattering was drowned by laughter and drums, but her heart heard nothing else. She turned to the elder, her eyes wide, but before she could speak, the other chiefs hushed him, dragging him away with angry murmurs. Her hands shook as she picked up the shards. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Buried? Her son? No, it could not be. That night, she crept through the palace, her bare feet silent against the cold floors. She found the drunken elder asleep in a corner, and she shook him awake. Tell me, she whispered, her voice breaking, what did you mean about the boy? The man blinked at her, his eyes clouded. He laughed weakly. Woman, you should not know these things. The palace feeds you, keeps you clothed. Leave the past alone. But Chinyere grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his skin. Tell me. His face softened for a moment. He sighed. You think your son walks among the living? Foolish woman. He was gone the very day you entered this palace. Her world shattered. A scream rose in her throat but refused to leave. She staggered backward, clutching her chest, her breath shallow, her body shaking as if struck by lightning. 7 years, 7 wasted years of washing, bowing, serving, while her son lay beneath the earth. She sank to her knees, the same knees scarred from years of service, and for the first time in years, she let herself weep loudly. The palace that had promised her protection had stolen her very soul. But grief, when it burns long enough, can turn into fire. She rose from her mat with eyes red but steady. For days, she watched, listened, waited. She learned which guards dozed at their posts, which doors were left unbarred, which paths in the garden led to shadows. She began to hear things differently, the careless words of chiefs, the warnings of maids, even the silence of the prince. Every detail was a stone, and she was building something inside her. One evening, when she was summoned again to wash their feet, she obeyed as always. But this time, as her hands touched the dusty soils, her mind was elsewhere. She remembered her mother's words, a woman is clay in the potter's hands, but when the fire touches her, she becomes unbreakable. The fire was already in her. She began to plan her escape, not only from the palace, but from the chains it had wrapped around her spirit. She would not remain the woman who bowed. She would not die with secrets choking her throat. She needed to see her son's grave. She needed to speak his name aloud, even if it meant death. The night she chose came with a storm. Rain beat against the palace roofs, thunder growled like an angry god. She slipped out with nothing but a wrapper tied around her chest, her bare feet splashing in the mud. She followed the elder's drunken directions, every step feeling like a step into the unknown. Past the gardens, beyond the storerooms, near the great tree at the edge of the compound, there, he had said, they laid the boy. And there, beneath the giant roots, she saw it. A small mound, long forgotten, half covered with weeds. Her hands trembled as she dug into the wet earth with her fingers. Nana, she sobbed, my son, forgive me. She clawed at the soil until her nails tore, until the rain washed mud down her arms. She did not stop until her hands touched the cold remnants of what was once her child. She wailed then, a cry so fierce that even the thunder seemed to pause. The sound of a mother's grief carried through the storm, rattling the very walls of the palace. But in that grave, she also found her freedom. When the prince confronted her the next morning, fury blazing in his eyes, she did not bow. She stood, her torn wrapper clinging to her body, her hands stained with earth. You promised me love, she said, her voice steady. But love built on lies is no love. You promised me protection, but you buried the only life worth protecting. I will not wash your feet again. Not today. Not ever. The hall was silent. The chief stared, shocked that she dared defy him. But Chinyere's eyes no longer saw a prince, they saw a man stripped of his disguise. A coward. A deceiver. A murderer. She turned and walked away, each step heavy yet freeing. For 7 years, the palace had caged her spirit. But now, even in her grief, she carried a strength the palace could never touch. Her son's body might lie in the ground, but his spirit had lit a fire in her that no man could bury. And the lesson she carried with her was this. No throne, no palace, no man is worth the soul of a woman who knows her own strength.